Turn to Ecclesiastes 9:11 if you'd like. We'll be at that verse in just a very short moment. Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 11. There's a saying, this was Mike Tyson specifically, who said, everyone has a good plan until they get hit in the face. Now, if you know, Mike Tyson was a boxer. The military has versions of this, and not one consistent version. They say no plan survives the first encounter with the enemy. Life is always changing, and you really never know exactly where it's going to go. You make your best plan, and then you just proceed forward. And in Ecclesiastes 9:11, he tells us very clearly, again, I saw under the sun that the race is not to the swift, the battle not to the warriors, nor neither is bread to the wise, nor wealth to discerning, or the favor to men of ability. For time and chance overtake them all. And that's life. All of us could give testimony about how we had our plans and we thought it was going to work this way or that and felt really confident of it. And in one moment or another, it all changed. And the plans had to change. So what I'm going to tell you to do is to expect the unexpected. This is the way life works. And if you expect the unexpected, you won't be overwhelmed by it. When you do have the smooth times, enjoy them. And when you have the smooth times, take them as far as you can and milk everything out of them you can. They're good times. Don't neglect them. Make the most of them. And then when you have the hard times, and they're coming too, then learn the most you can. Understand and learn and evaluate what's going on and how it went down and how it unfolded and how it could have been different and how you can plan for the future. And if you can take all those things together, which is pretty simple wisdom, when life throws you one of those black eye lessons, you'll get up and you'll keep moving on. And it won't be too hard. So we're going to do 7 general lessons. Of course, as many of you know, I got a black eye about 2 weeks ago, and I thought, well, there's got to be some lessons here. These are not specific to that event, though I did get to ponder it over in that way. But I thought, well, there ought to be some general lessons we can take. Because when we talk about life throwing you a black eye, we're not just talking about the big life-changing events, and there are those, and you've got to handle those in their own special way. But then there are just the little, I'm going to call them hiccups along the way, where it happens and you get up and you keep going. Now, you might keep going with a limp or a little pain or a little blurry vision or what have you, but you get up and you keep going. And you have to learn to look at all of the events of life as teaching you a lesson of some sort. And if you become a student of life, then you'll become wiser and more experienced, and you'll become stronger, and you'll be one of those people at the upper edge where others look and go, how do they do it? And they do it because they learn the lessons of life and engage their heart to understand and analyze. So discomfort can help build endurance. Lazy boy recliners are not the strength builders. Think about that a second. If lazy boy recliners were strength builders that America thinks they are, we would be the strongest nation on planet Earth, because I do not hesitate much to say we as a nation are the laziest planet on Earth. The laziest country. What has happened is Satan has sold us a bill of goods. He has sold us a lie that to be at the cherry spot of life, to be in the sweetest place of life, the place you need to be is comfortable and sweet and pleasant and entertaining. And all entertainment does is make you softer, and it makes you weaker. Those of you who went through the military training understand that quite easily, don't you? They did not give you recliners and donuts and a bunch of TVs and say, this is your training for the next 6 weeks. You're going to watch every episode of Andy Griffith or I Love Lucy. That's not the way it works. Unfortunately, for some reason, when we walk away from the obvious analogy and look at real life, people think, no, it's victory for me. If I get to play and avoid all difficulties and discomforts, that's my victory. And so it started maybe with Monday Night Football. And now it's football 24/7 or basketball 24/7 or baseball 24/7 or whatever you want 24/7. The industry has grown up so that if you want entertainment and whatever entertainment it is you want, it is there for you 24/7 for you just to sit back, be a couch potato, and take in all the entertainment they can dish out. It doesn't work that way, does it? Romans 5, verse 3 and 5. Romans 5. Here's the Christian mindset. And not only this, but we also exult in our tribulations, knowing that tribulation brings about perseverance, and perseverance proven character, and proven character hope. And hope does not disappoint because the love of God has been poured out within our hearts through the Holy Spirit who is given to us. Look there at verse 3 again. Tribulation brings about perseverance. And then perseverance brings about character. Think about David. Don't know what struggles he faced entirely as he was a shepherd watching his father's flocks. But we do know that in the process, he said, I have killed a lion and a bear. And then when Goliath came along, because of his growing through those previous tribulations, he was ready to stand before Goliath and take him down in the name of God. And then when Saul was chasing him and Saul was wanting to kill him and pursued him all over the country, David again had an understanding and a patience and an endurance, and eventually became one of the best kings of all Israel. Maybe in your opinion, he was the best king. So our failure or our success can be all about mindset. David could have sat around and said, oh, woe is me. This is not fair. I'm a victim. They're not doing me right, and could have just dwindled down into this self-pity party, and we might have never knew who David was. But David took a different mindset, and the curious thing here is you can take two people. You can put them in the exact same circumstance, and one of them, because of his or her mindset, will excel. And the other, because of his or her mindset, will fail. It is not what's on the outside of us that makes us. It's what's in our heart that makes us. And once we can get that message through and truly embrace it, not just as some nice little fluffy platitude that you hear from pulpits, but as a truth you carry deep within inside your heart, then you have the advantage over most of the population, because most will never accept that. Setbacks precede a comeback. I heard a speaker say everybody wants to come back, but they don't want the setback. But you can't have the comeback without the setback, right? That's the way it works. Life doesn't move in a straight line. So what I would like you to envision is the idea of the stock market chart, where you always want your stock going up, but you know it's going to do it in a zigzag fashion. But as long as it's trending up, you're okay. And that's the way life's going to work. Sometimes you're going to have those smooth stretches, and sometimes it's going to feel like you fell off a cliff, and sometimes it's just going to zig and zag, and you've zagged when it zigged, and it gets a little complicated there. But if you'll stay the course, if you'll keep your eye farther ahead, you'll be like Joseph. His life took some really ugly turns, and I think we all would agree they were really ugly turns. Well, where did he end up? It ended up in a good place, didn't it? And that's what we want. The path of life is not one we get to choose. We don't get to pick how it works. You get to plan, and you get to make your best plans. And I encourage you to plan and do so wisely and find the best resources for that planning. But the fact of the matter is, I don't care who you get to help you plan. Life is not going to go, let me see your plan so I can cooperate with you. It doesn't work that way. Probably would not be as much fun if it did work that way. I'm just guessing here. Struggles set us free in Acts 8:4. When they were persecuted, they went everywhere preaching the gospel. What if they had never been persecuted? I have an idea that had they not been persecuted, there would have been a few people like Paul and Barnabas and some others, Apollos, that did go about teaching the gospel. But there would have been a whole lot of them who had just stayed home and go, you know, it's easier to stay home. I really don't want to do all that traveling. I really don't want to have to take all this journey on foot. It's hard. And if you go back 2,000 years ago, they didn't have interstates and Cadillacs and air conditioning in the car. They took a bag and their staff and their sandals and they started walking. What's the furthest you can walk? You know, you get the idea, right? But when the persecution came along, it freed them from their restrictions. It set them free from the limits that were in their mind. And they went. And they went everywhere preaching the gospel. So what we do is we look for the blessings. We look for the good things and the bad times. This is kind of a difficult thing with the American mindset, but this is what we do. There's a difficulty, but inside the difficulty, there's the meat, so to speak. If you would, you've ever tried to crack an old walnut? That's a hard nut to crack. But if you like walnuts, where's the good stuff? Inside. So one wit said, a speaker said, life gives you the nuts, it just doesn't crack them for you. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. When you get a difficult situation, you have to pray. What is the blessing in the situation? You have to sit and ponder and meditate. And it may take you half an hour. It may take you a week of ruminating over an idea for a while to see what the opportunity was in it. It may take longer than that. We all know people who ran into some unfortunate opportunity. Let's say the factory closed down and they said, oh, my life is over. My entire livelihood is gone. And 6 months later, they say, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. If the factory had not shut down, I would never have discovered. And they're on a whole new path. It's not a quick, instantaneous thing is the point I'm making, but you have to look for the new angle. You and I have to do it. And again, we do it primarily within our own heart, within our own psyche, because the world out there is always going to be a storm of some sort. Losses teach us appreciation. I sure do. You refocus on what matters when you lose some things. Losing has so clarifying value that is hard to want to chase down. In 1 Thessalonians 5:18, I want to go back and read verse 16, 15 and 16. We're coming up to that. This is where he says give thanks in everything. But you have a little triad there. Right in the middle of it, it says pray without ceasing. I want verse 16, 17, and 18. He says, rejoice always, pray without ceasing. In everything give thanks, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus. And then he says, don't quench the spirit. So what we want is an attitude that says, I know there's a blessing in this. I may not see that blessing today. I may not see that blessing next week. It may be many, many, many years later when I look back on my life, I see that blessing. We really don't know how and when it's going to unfold. But we do know that what he told us is to appreciate it. He did say, in everything, give thanks. And thus we give thanks. And if you have to give your thanks and say, thank you, Lord, for this situation. I don't know where you're going with it right now. I cannot see down the road far enough to understand what you have in mind, but I know you are smarter than I am. You are omniscient. You are all powerful. I know that this will, in your plan, work out for my good if I cooperate. That's the attitude. That's the appreciation you want. So gratitude's not just for times of abundance. And that's the way we tend to think of it, isn't it? I get a new car. Oh, I'm so happy. I got a promotion. Ooh, I'm so happy. I got a new opportunity. Wow, life is so good. And then you get a black eye. And you, okay, how can I appreciate this? This is not fun. This hurts. And they do. And other things in life hurt. And you look for the value because there is value to be found in those things. The prodigal son, he found new appreciation. In Luke 15 and verse 17, he is in the worst place he has ever been in his life. Now the irony here is, of course, he's trying to feed the pigs and he's kind of thinking the pigs got it pretty good down here. And he starts to realize how good he had it back home. But he had to leave home to find out how good it was at home. And then he's trying to run back home, the very place he ran away from. Kind of reminds me of teenagers sometimes. Can't wait till I'm 18. I think nowadays they say 28, but anyway, I can't wait till I'm 18. I'm grown up. I can get away from here. I can live my own life because my parents don't know what they're doing. Then they get out on their own and they're having to pay their own bills and make their own way, and they find out life isn't so easy. And they go, yeah, I think I'll go back home. It was a little easier back there. I might move out when I'm 32. And then there's always the joke of the guy who stays in his parents' basement till he's 48. Loss helps us appreciate things. Paul said in Philippians 4 that he learned in whatever state he was in to be content. It is a learning process. There's no question about that. And it is a safe learning process. So life throws you a curve. Something happens in your life you did not expect. You put the idea in your mind. You think of the situation in your mind, but it has happened. Let's say it happened yesterday, just for a time analogy. And now what I'm encouraging you to do is find your appreciation in it. Well, the thought is unpleasant, and people will resist doing that. My next question is, if you do that, if you pray, Lord, I don't understand this, grant me wisdom to understand how this is going to help me grow, will it cause the pain to be worse? Will it cause it to happen again? Will it multiply the difficulty? Or is there a chance it will open up a new avenue and bring blessing? The event's already done. It's already yesterday, maybe last week, maybe last year, maybe 10 years ago. If we ignore it, does it get better? And if you have an event in your mind that goes back as far as 10 years, then obviously it didn't get better because it's still there and it's carrying energy. And so we learn. We learn in whatever situation we are in. We learn to be content. But only we can take ourselves through the process. I can preach and tell you about the process. That's exactly what I'm doing. But you know the old saying, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And if you have the thought popping up in your head, well, that preacher just doesn't understand my situation, then you know you're already in denial and refusing to grow. Because it doesn't matter if I understand your situation or not. I am totally irrelevant in your life. What matters if you have the courage to take your life and learn the lessons your life presented you in its own unique way for you, and thus learn to be content in every situation you're in. Conflict reveals character, of course. Anybody can be a fair weather sailor. It's easy when there's no storm clouds blowing and the waves are not tossing and it's just beautiful sailing all the way. It's the ones who have experience on the rough seas that you want by your side, especially when things do get bad. And we get that through experience. Let's look at Hebrews 5:12 for a moment. We'll take that down through verse 14. Let me preface it by saying the resistance to grow and to drink it in personal is not a 2025 situation. It is not a modern America situation. It is a condition of humanity. It is one of those things that there's nothing new under the sun and it never changes. 2,000 years ago, Paul wrote, for by this time you ought to be teachers. You have need again for someone to teach you the elementary principles of the oracles of God. And you've come to need milk and not solid food. What happened? They did not engage the training. They heard the preaching. Paul taught to them. What better teacher to have than Paul or whoever you think wrote this epistle? And yet, with the greatest teachers and availability that they had in the first century, somehow or another they decided to stay at the baby bottom and not to grow. He goes on, for everyone who partakes only of milk is not accustomed to the word of righteousness, for he is an infant. But solid food is for the mature who, because of practice, have their senses trained to discern good and evil. So you got time. Time's rolling on. We can't stop it. It's going to happen one way or the other. So time either just makes you old or training makes you wise. And here's the beauty of it. You and I individually get to choose. Will I use the time that's rolling by on the clock to get wiser, better, stronger? Will I grow? Or will I just get old? You know the saying, there's no fool like an old fool. But you don't have to be an old fool. There's a path to be in a whole different place. So we face it as steps upward. 2 Corinthians 12, verse 8 through 10, that's where Paul was praying that the thorn in his flesh might be removed. And he saw it as a way up. That one gets a little too deep to go into further right now, but look at Paul. And conflict revealed his character. And he grew. Uncertain times trained adaptability. Again, life is full of the unexpected. Proverbs 27:1 says, you don't know what's coming tomorrow. And think about that a second. We have our plans for tomorrow, right? And I think it's wise to have your plans for tomorrow. But we all know that we might wake up in the morning and find out our plans get scrapped. And we go a whole nother direction. We've all seen that. We've all experienced that. Life is not going to meet us on our terms, so we're going to get in there. We're going to mix it up. We're going to get the experience, and that experience is going to bring confidence. Let me use my boxing example that I opened up with at the very beginning. Everyone has a good plan until they get hit in the face. That was Mike Tyson. For a time, he was known as one of the baddest, meanest, toughest boxers on the planet. You know how he got that way? He fought a lot. And if you ever listened to him tell his personal story, he fought since he was a kid. And I mean single-digit kid, not 16-year-old kid. You know where his confidence came from? Experience and training. You want confidence? Guess where you're going to get it? Experience and training. That's what it takes. And then optimism will follow after that, because then you can be optimistic about life. Oh, I might hurt. It might not always go exactly the way I want it to go, but I know, and I know that I can get through it because I have X number of years of experience behind me that says I get through it. So Romans 8:28 is just the all things work together for good for those who love the Lord. Patience will bring about better choices. Proverbs 14:29. He who is slow to anger has great understanding. He who is quick-tempered exalts folly. Sit back on it a minute. There are things in life that don't have to be acted upon in the moment. Now, if your house is on fire, I want you to act quick. I want you to act now. There are times to act quick. But there are other things that you sit back and you observe for a while. I don't know how many times people have ended up in divorce court because they didn't have the patience to work through the difficulties of a marriage and get to the deeper wealth that was on the other side of those difficulties. Incidentally, I saw a news article yesterday. I did not read the article, but a man filed for divorce wanting to leave his wife because he had an AI girlfriend. You knew it was coming. I'm just like, can people really be that dense? And yes, they can really be that dense. So your insight's going to grow over time. Over time, you're just going to get smarter and smarter. You're going to get better and better if you are applying yourself to that direction. And that is the tricky part. It is one thing to say, I am applying myself to that direction and not do it, and to apply yourself to that direction. There are a lot of people who are in the victim mentality. Nobody likes me. Everybody hates me. Everybody's against me. Nobody wants me around. They just keep pushing me out all the time. And they think they're traveling toward wisdom, but they're not. Because if that assessment of their life is true, nobody likes me. Nobody wants me around. They're always pushing me out. Do you know there are very simple strategies to change your life and your behavior where people like you and want you around and don't push you out? Do you know it requires reading a book or doing some research and being honest with yourself? So it's one thing to say, I'm trying. I'm really trying to be better. And then really trying to be better. Insights will grow over time. David's patience with Saul in 1 Samuel 24:6 is where he had the opportunity to kill Saul, and he would not do it, would not reach out his hand against God's anointed. He would let God play things out in God's time. And as you know the story, God did. So we learn to work with life rather than against life. Life gives you a black eye, you go, okay, I've got something to learn here. I need to do something a little different in the future. That didn't work out so well. Last one, number 7, reflection. The essential inner step. It's what we do on the inside that matters the most. The story of the sailors or the sailboat is, you're on a lake. The wind's blowing one direction, let's just say north, for example, but the sailboats are going 360 different directions. Why is that so? If it's a sailboat and it's driven by the wind, why are not all the sailboats going north? Because the direction you go all depends on the set of your sail. It's not what the water's doing. It's not what the wind's doing. It's how you adjust yourself to those external circumstances that make all the difference. And the person who can make it from that analogy to the daily practice of their life will change the course of their life. And so we get scars in the process. And I like the idea that scars are proof we survived. Reflection helps us to prevent stagnation. I've had some really good times in the last 67 years. I've had some bad times. Don't mind repeating the good times. Don't want to repeat the bad times. How can I facilitate that? I have to understand what helped the good times be good times. Try to set the stage that way. And what brought about the bad times. And go, I'm not setting the stage that way again. And now we're back to self and back to reflection. Psalms 119, 14 through 16, and we'll wind it up. Psalms 119. I have rejoiced in the way of your testimonies as much as in all riches. I will meditate on your precepts and regard your ways. I shall delight in your statutes. I shall not forget your word. There's reflection. There's your basis for reflection. Final wrap up. Life hits us hard sometimes. Whether it just upsets your day, upsets your morning, upsets a week, or maybe changes the entire course of your life, life hits hard sometimes. And in response, we must learn and grow. We can find creativity, gratitude, character building, adaptability, discernment, maturity. There are all kinds of lessons to learn. The trick is to be open to learning them. Let me repeat that one. The trick is simply be open to learning the lesson to change your future behavior. Discomfort, it can be a great motivator because the growth is not going to happen by accident. You will grow old no matter what, but you will not grow wise and mature no matter what. Whatever you face, God can use it with your cooperation. Of course, the only question now is, are we cooperating? That doesn't demand a public response. That just demands me to look in my life and go, am I cooperating? Now, it may be that you're in a situation where you feel you need to make a public response. If we can help you, let's do so. While together we stand and sing.